The White House has had to scale back a U.S. delegation's trip to another target of its ambitions, Greenland, now that that trip has become highly contentious, to say the least. Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance are planning to visit the semi-autonomous Danish territory on Friday. Denmark's prime minister is accusing the U.S. of putting, quote, unacceptable pressure on the island. President Trump has said repeatedly he wants to make Greenland part of the U.S., claiming it is vital to U.S. national security interests and somehow that the people of Greenland support that idea. Polls say otherwise. Joining me now, Rasmus Jarlov. He's a conservative member of the Danish parliament and the head of Denmark's Defense Committee. He's also the spokesperson on Greenlandic affairs for the Conservatives. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
First, let me ask you this question. How do you react? How do your colleagues in Parliament react to hear the leader, the president of a treaty ally, the United States, saying with a smile at times that the U.S. is going to take over Greenland? How do you respond to that?
We're not happy with that. It's unheard of that you have allied countries that want to annex part of another country. Greenland is a fully integrated part of Denmark. They are citizens of Denmark, and there's absolutely no way that we will agree to hand them over to become Americans against their will. And they don't want to become Americans. It's very, very clear. They had an election 2 weeks ago, and there wasn't a single out of the 31 members elected for the local Greenlandic parliament, not one wants to become part of the United States. So this is a hostile attempt of taking over, annexing people, subjugating people that do not want to become part of the United States.
There are those in this country who will often say about Donald Trump, that's just talk. He's not serious. It's bluster. It's part of a negotiation. I wonder how Denmark hears those comments. Are your colleagues in government there taking the threat to take Greenland seriously?
Yes, we are taking it seriously. It has been repeated so many times by now that it would be weird not to take it seriously. I have no doubt, and we have no doubt, that if the American government could annex Greenland, they would definitely do it. They want it to become American, but we can't do it. I mean, first of all, it's completely unreasonable. There is no legitimacy behind this claim. It is against the will of the people living in Greenland. And secondly, there is no need for it, because everything that the United States could want from Greenland, being having a stronger military presence or minerals, they can have that if they just talk to us normally. There's no need to annex the island. If they want to extract minerals, just put up the investments needed. They have been looking for international investors for decades without finding them. But if Americans want to do it, Greenland is open for business. If they want to have a stronger military presence, that is also possible. So there is no need for this talk. We could definitely meet whatever reasonable demands and wishes the Americans have. But the thought of annexing it and handing it over to the U.S. is out of the question.
What is Denmark prepared to do to resist American economic pressure, to give up Greenland, and even possibly military pressure?
Everything. We will do everything to resist, and we expect to be exposed to a lot of pressure. Maybe the same way that Canada is being pressured at the moment. Maybe the same will happen to us, but it's not going to change our mind. So we only hope that the American government does not continue to escalate and take this further and further, because we can't do it. We cannot hand over 57,000 of our citizens to become Americans against their will.
Do you envision any scenario where, and this is remarkable just to say it out loud, given Denmark and the U.S. are treaty allies, and as I often remind Americans, Denmark fought alongside the U.S. in Afghanistan and lost a great number of soldiers there, in fact, quite a high percentage compared to the size of their military. But can you envision a scenario where U.S. and Danish forces somehow come face to face over Greenland?
I certainly hope not. but that's up to the American government. We're not going to back down. We're not going to hand over Greenland, regardless of what type of pressure is applied to us. So I certainly hope it won't come to that.
Yeah.
There is a lot at stake here, because this is not only a matter of being reasonable to Denmark and Greenland, it is also a matter of the entire Western alliance. Nobody's going to be allied to a country that tries to annex parts of that country's territory. So if the US wants to be a global leader, and we've been very happy to let the US lead the world, but then you have to behave. You can't just attack your allies and try to take their territory while at the same time trying to help Russia to gain more territory in Europe. So we think American foreign policy is going in a very bad direction. Yeah. And we're very, very sad if we are going to lose the great relationship we had with the United States for so many decades. We think it has served both sides, and we're very happy to continue to let the U.S. lead. But this is just this is too much, obviously.
Yeah, and listen, blood spilt, right, for that alliance. Similar for Denmark and Canada, as we were discussing earlier. Rasmus Jarlov, thanks so much for joining.
Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha Vance are on their way to Greenland. They're leading a U.S. delegation on a one-day trip to visit the U.S. Space Force installation there. They could also be in for a chilly reception from people in Greenland. The leader of Greenland called the original plans for Usha Vance to visit solo highly aggressive. And President Trump continues, of course, his unrelenting quest to buy the island, saying this yesterday.
We need Greenland for national security and international security. So I think we'll go as far as we have to go. We need Greenland.
In a recent opinion poll, 85% of Greenlanders said they were opposed to being annexed by the United States. One Danish lawmaker also tells CNN that the push could do permanent damage.
This is a hostile attempt of taking over, annexing people, subjugating people that do not want to become part of the United States.
CNN's Jim Shudo joining me right now from Washington. And Jim, that was your interview. You spoke with that Danish lawmaker that we just heard from. What else did he tell you?
He's the chairman of their Defense Committee, the equivalent here, say, of being chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. When I speak to both Danish lawmakers and officials, but also lawmakers and officials from Greenland, they say a number of things. One, they say there is no public support either in Denmark or in Greenland for being taken over by the U.S. So when you hear Donald Trump say they're speaking to people in Greenland who want this, it's just not supported by the facts. In fact, the public facts show that public support is very much against this. The second thing they say, as this lawmaker made clear, is that they will resist U.S. pressure. They're not going to give in to economic pressure or even military pressure. They're making a stand. And the third thing, and this stood out to me speaking to this Danish lawmaker, is he said that this is doing broad damage to the NATO alliance. Because remember, of course, Denmark is a treaty ally of the United States. Denmark sent soldiers to Afghanistan to fight alongside the U.S. and in terms of percentage of the size of their force, lost more than anybody. Here's how that lawmaker, Rasmus Jarlov, put it. Have a listen.
There is a lot at stake here, because this is not only a matter of being reasonable to Denmark and Greenland, it is also a matter of the entire Western alliance. We think American foreign policy is going in a very bad direction, and we're very, very sad if we are going to lose the great relationship we had with the United States for so many decades. We think it has served both sides, and we're very happy to continue to let the U.S. lead. But this is just this is too much.
So like Canada, Kate, I mean, you have, again, a U.S. ally saying, we may lose the relationship with the U.S. And I asked him a question. This really stood out to me. I said, can you imagine a scenario where the U.S. sends forces to Greenland to act on the president's orders to take the island? Would they come face-to-face with Danish forces? And he said to me, that's up to the U.S. He didn't take that off the table. It's remarkable.
That is remarkable. Remarkable times. Jim, great interview. Thanks for coming in. It's great to see you, buddy.